just touching 130 on the brakes there. Tip it in, balance the car on the throttle through here. What a machine. And over the line now. Woohoo! Use all the track just like I did before. Get it turning early. Oh, yes! Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm down here at the Bedford Autodrome. A quick reminder about this M3 competition xDrive Touring. It has an S58 under the bonnet, 3 litre inline 6 twin turbo, 510 horsepower, 650 newton meters. It has a ZF 8-speed automatic gearbox, and it has BMW's M xDrive system, so you can decouple the front axle altogether and turn it back into a traditional rear-wheel drive M car, and we'll play around with that once we get out on the circuit. I'm running Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres. Just got to keep an eye on temperatures because this circuit, well, it's very hard on brakes and it is very hard on front tyres because there's a lot of hairpins, there's a lot of big braking sections. Something I've always wanted to test is how much advantage the M xDrive system is giving me. And I think a circuit like Bedford, especially in this west layout, is a really good and fair test because there's tight and niggly bits like this, a couple of really slow hairpins where I think the M xDrive is really going to come into its own. But then there's also sections that are really fast where you just don't need that all-wheel drive. The rear-wheel drive version, if you like, will do the job just as good. So when we start our next lap, I'll keep my head down and put in a reasonable lap time. I'm going for consistency really. And then once I've done a four-wheel drive sport lap, I will do a rear-wheel drive only lap, but we'll do a cool-down lap in between to give the tyres and the brakes time to recover. This is a public track day, so I can't live time sessions, if you like, but I can time them afterwards when I get home and look at them on the screen. So we will be able to see what sort of times both four-wheel drive sport and rear-wheel drive put in. So we're just coming around to the last corner on the track now. Tip it in, it's fast through here. And start. As I say, I'll probably drive it about 90%, hopefully keeping some of it back just in case. Out of there, definitely quicker. I mean, that was on the floor in second. But through sections like this, well, might have to be a bit more gentle on the exit. Patience through here. Wow. Get that nose in and then power. Use all the track, short shift a little bit there just to give the front end a good fighting chance. Be interesting to compare top speeds as well. So this is going to show me 152 through there. Tip it in at whatever speed that was, 100 odd miles an hour. Just shouldn't be possible in a car like this. 135 onto the brakes. I'm not braking as late as possible, but I'm trying to be smooth. Use all the track here. Turn in early, get on the throttle early. Again, use all the track on the exit. I'll do the same with the rear wheel drive, so it'll be fair. Again, through here, this is where I'm going to make up loads of time with the xDrive, because I can just slide it and go. Got to be patient through here. It likes to understeer a little bit. Again, nice and wide. We've had a nice clear track. Just touching 130 on the brakes there. Tip it in. Balance the car on the throttle through here. What a machine. And over the line now. I will do a slow down or cool down lap, because the poor tyres and brakes, they're going to need it. PS4Ss are unreal on track, they really are, but where they lack a little bit compared to the Pilot Sport Cup 2s is they don't quite have that high temperature operating window. They overheat a bit quicker, and that's just because they have a lot more cuts and grooves in them, because they perform extremely well in wet weather and pretty much all UK weather. So that's always going to be a compromise on track, where you want that Cup 2 that has super stiff carcass and big sort of slick patches of rubber. It's always a compromise, but over a couple of laps, the PS4Ss, to me anyway, don't feel really any slower. Maybe a little bit more understeer, but I'm not sure if that's because we're in the Touring. But wow, what a machine, what a machine. This is going to be really interesting for me when I see the times, because although I'm definitely making up time with the xDrive out of slower corners, where I can just smash the throttle and let the systems in the car do everything, little bit of opposite lock on the way out, but it's going to fire me along. So looks cool, but it's also very progressive. It gets you down the road, whereas if you're getting too much angle in rear wheel drive, any rear wheel drive car on tarmac, you are essentially losing time. But in something like this, a bit of angle doesn't really matter. I don't think it does lose too much time with a bit of angle. Anyway, I will join you at the start of the rear wheel drive only lap. You join me at the end of my cool down lap. I'm now in two wheel drive, so rear wheel drive. And as with the four wheel drive Sport, I have all the traction control devices switched off. Just coming into the penultimate corner. Got to be careful through here. It's definitely more tail happy. Tip it into this very fast right-hander. Oh, use all the track out onto the rumble strips. Now this is one of the corners we're definitely going to lose time on the exit, so short shift to third, let it rotate a little bit, and then it just digs in. You feel it dig in. Incredible traction. Short shift to fourth, definitely through here. Just play with the throttle a little bit, chase that late apex. There we go. Short shift again through here so I can keep my foot on the floor. Patience through here. Oh, that was half throttle. Wow, this car's unreal. There's the apex. Let it run out wide again. Short shift slightly early. Just helps get the nose in. If you feel it's understeering a little bit and you don't want to let off the throttle, just give it a quick short shift. So let's see top speed. Identical, 152 miles an hour. We're running a full fuel load through here, so just before lunch I was getting 156, so shows you what a difference 50 kilos of fuel makes. Get it tipped in. I'm going to keep it in third through here, especially rear wheel drive. Oh, steer it on the throttle, it's lovely. Oh. Use all the track just like I did before. Get it turning early. Oh yes. Again, this corner, I'm going to lose a fair chunk of time on the exit. Although I maximised that perfectly, I think. Get the nose turned in. I can feel the rear end wanting to rotate again. Use all of the available track. Coming up to the end of this lap now. Tip it in, wait for the front end. Oh, a little bit of a windscreen wiper action there. And over the finish line now. Well, that'll be interesting. That'll be very interesting. I'm sure it's still maybe half a second or a second slower than having it in four-wheel drive sport, because those hairpins, you're probably losing half a second on each of those. This one here on turn 1 and the other one at the back end of the circuit, and I'm definitely not making that up anywhere, but minimal time differences. If it was wet or greasy out here like it was this morning, massive time difference. I think then it would be 4-5 seconds a lap different out here for sure. But in these conditions, I mean, that rear axle, those rear Michelins, they've just got so much grip, it's unreal. Really, really impressive car. I'm so impressed with it. Now I'm back in the office and I know that there's a lap time differential of 1.17 seconds between four-wheel drive sport and rear-wheel drive. We can break the laps down and have a look at where the rear-wheel drive car lost that 1.17 seconds. The first sector that I'm going to choose to look at finishes at the apex of a left-hand hairpin that leads onto the back straight at Bedford. And in the four-wheel drive sport car, I get to that point at 49.90 seconds. And in the rear-wheel drive car, I get there at 49.91 seconds. Basically identical times, 1/100th of a second slower in the rear-wheel drive car. I would have thought that would have been a slightly bigger gap already, just due to the very first corner. It's another hairpin, left-hander. I talked about it in the video. You would normally lose a bit of time through there in a rear-wheel drive car compared to a four-wheel drive car, but I did absolutely nail it in my rear-wheel drive lap. Actually, I was quite surprised in the video and on the day how well it catapulted out of turn 1. Then we fast forward to after the main straight, we go through a chicane, there's a long left-hander, and then there's a right-hander, which loads the car up massively. It loads any car up. It's a very long right-hander and you're picking up the throttle all the way through it. I use a very late apex and it can be a little bit slippery on the exit, especially in rear-wheel drive cars. And in fact, that's where I had my first, let's say, medium to big moment in the rear-wheel drive setup. So let's rewind to the start of that right-hander just before we tip in and have a look at the times again. Well, four-wheel drive sport, 133.95. Rear-wheel drive, 133.84. So the rear-wheel drive was actually 1/10 of a second quicker up until that point. The third sector we're going to look at is only 11 seconds down the road, and that's because I wanted to see how much time I'd lost with that small sideways moment on the exit of that long right-hander. And at that point, the four-wheel drive sport car is at 1 minute 44.60. The two-wheel drive, 1 minute 44.77. So between the end of sector 2 and the end of sector 3, which is only 11 seconds, I'd lost about 3/10 of a second. Now we'll fast forward to the end of the fourth and final sector, which is the penultimate right-hander just before we finish the lap. And on that particular right-hander, on the exit, I get a big sideways moment in the rear-wheel drive lap. So I wanted to look at what the time was before I got that moment. So we're right on the apex of that final corner. In the four-wheel drive sport car, we got a 227.12, and in the rear-wheel drive car, we got a 227.96. So I've continued to lose a fair chunk of time since sector 3, and we're now about 0.85 of a second behind the four-wheel drive sport car. Then we get the big moment on the exit, and surprise, surprise, I continue to lose more time until we cross the line seconds later. In fact, I think I lose about another 0.33 of a second between that final sector and the finish line, which is literally 10 seconds down the road. So it's really interesting when you look at that, where I've lost the time. In my head, I knew that as soon as I was going sideways, I was losing time, and that's exactly what these frames have told me. Could I have done a smoother lap in the two-wheel drive car? Of course I could have, but I could have also done a smoother and faster lap in the four-wheel drive sport. In my head, at least, I think I was bang on the money on both laps. I pushed just as hard, and where I've lost the time is where we've needed that extra traction. And it's also interesting to see that both of those sideways moments, one was about 2/3 of the way into the lap and one was right at the end of the lap. And that's where the tyres, especially the rears, are sort of up towards the top of their temperature operating window. And as tyres get hotter, I think when I finished that lap, the rears were about 70. That's where they start to drop away. So tyres have got very little grip when they're cold. They've then got an optimum window, but then once you get hotter than that optimum window, it drops away again. And I think that's kind of what happened. I started to lose a bit of rear end grip as the tyres got a little bit hotter and sort of above their operating window. Hopefully you found that interesting. I personally love breaking down those laps and looking at the lap times and where I've lost and sometimes gained some time in the rear wheel drive car. And it's great to see that what I was feeling on the day was more or less correct when you look at it on the clock. I'd love to go back there in an M3 Touring, my M3 Touring, potentially on Cup 2s or even Cup 2Rs. Be good to see if we get down towards the 236 mark with a set of Cup 2Rs. So maybe that will happen one day. Watch this space. Anyway, let's go back to me on the day and I can end the video. That M4 CS there that you can see, the lime rock grey one, is actually the exact press car that I had nearly 5 years ago that I took down to the Alps. That M4 CS lime rock grey belongs to a very nice guy, John, and he's got a big YouTube channel all around detailing, so almost the polar opposite to me. But it's just lovely seeing that car. It's just brings back so many amazing memories. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you at another one very, very soon. Cheers.